Our goal is peace. Personal stories of miraculous healing. As a devoted student of A Course in Miracles, every now and then I come across a passage that clearly describes the meaning of something important, a tidbit that escaped my attention until that moment. Here is one of them, a clear reason for why the Course exists and why we want to understand it to begin with. Forget not that the motivation for this Course is the attainment and the keeping of the state of peace. Given this state, the mind is quiet, and the condition in which God is remembered is attained. Course in Miracles, text, chapter 24, Introduction. Given this quote, then, the entire goal of this seemingly complex, lengthy Course in Miracles is peace. What is so difficult about learning how to be at peace that it requires a book over 1,000 pages long to explain it? According to the section the above quote was taken from, it all comes down to our beliefs. Our peace is based upon what we think. Change what we think, and we change how we feel. Our beliefs dictate whether we enter or leave a state of peace. The entirety of A Course in Miracles, then, is a book that teaches us new beliefs, ones based upon the truth and not the ego. Here is another quote that struck me as important because it explains to us what the world is for. Forget not that the healing of God's Son is all the world is for. A Course in Miracles, text, chapter 24, section 6. So, here we're given definitions of what the Course is for and what the world is for. The Course is given to us to learn peace, and through learning peace, we learn how to heal in this world. So how do we use the Course to do this? What are some everyday applications of the Course that show what shifting our beliefs to the truth can do? In the stories that follow, I will give 4 examples of real-life scenarios that happened to me personally, demonstrations of what miracles can come from a simple change in belief, or you can also say shift in perception, from fear to love. It is my hope you will see the common theme among all of these stories, though they each deal with a seemingly different aspect of healing. The examples will be 1. Healing a situation, 2. Healing a relationship, 3. Healing my body, 4. Healing the body of someone else. Story 1. Healing a situation. At the end of 2018, I unexpectedly lost my job as a pharmacist. This came as a complete surprise and happened quickly. We were given only 7 days' notice. The pharmacy was closing. This gave us little time to prepare our customers and ourselves for closure. And of course, this was a situation I didn't want or like in any way. The next stage of this situation was even less pleasant. The quickest job I could find was with a company that did not treat their employees the same as what I was accustomed to. I felt like a number, not a person. All the personal liberties and freedoms I enjoyed at my previous job were stripped away, and I was forced into becoming a robot on an assembly line, filling prescriptions as fast as possible with little or no patient contact. This was by far the unhappiest work situation I'd ever been in. I wondered how I could apply my Course teachings to get out of it. Or perhaps I'd been practicing the Course incorrectly all along. Or maybe I was being punished for something. Why and how did I manifest this situation? What happened next was truly a miracle. After only a couple of months of working for my new employer, I began applying for one job after another, only to be turned down for one reason or another. The pharmacy job market had changed immensely since I last looked for a job 14 years prior, and had become highly competitive. Still feeling hopeless at the 6-month mark of employment, something remarkable happened. I read something that morning in the text of A Course in Miracles that I had seen before, but this time it stopped me dead in my tracks, and it was this: there is no statement that the world is more afraid to hear than this: I do not know the thing I am, and therefore do not know what I am doing, where I am, or how to look upon the world or myself. Yet in this learning is salvation born, and what you are will tell you of itself. A Course in Miracles, text, chapter 31, section 5. My very next thought was, why does admitting I do not know anything cause the world to be afraid? Why does such a thought threaten it and trigger my salvation? The Holy Spirit immediately answered me within my mind with this: Holy Spirit, when you admit you do not know what anything in the world means, you withdraw your judgment from it, and therefore wipe clean from your mind all previous assumptions. This is true forgiveness. This is what creates an open space for something new, a new thought, free of the ego's definitions. When you actively apply true forgiveness to the world around you, you change it. When you forgive the world, it shifts, because your perception of it has shifted. You are now projecting a new world, one that is led quietly ahead by me, rather than being driven forcefully forward by your ego. The ego-driven world fears this shift because it knows it cannot remain as it is once you have forgiven it. I then wondered, but how do I do this? How do I forgive the world? To which the Holy Spirit replied, can you at least admit you do not understand your current circumstances? Can you at least admit you do not know why you are experiencing what is happening to you now in your present working conditions? I responded with a resounding, yes, I can easily do that. I already feel it inside me right now. Then the Holy Spirit said, then you have already taken the first great step towards letting go of all you ever thought you knew and understood about the world. It is the first step in knowing you do not know the thing you are, what you are doing, where you are, or how to look upon the world or yourself. In this simple release of judgment lies the release of everything outside of you. This release then places everything in my hands. You have ceased to exert your own will, your own control over the situation, and exhibited true trust in my truth, and my truth will correct all things. And with that thought, something made a dramatic shift within me. For the first time in 6 months, I felt no anxiety or fear in any form, as I realized I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I felt full trust in my situation and accepted it peacefully, without resistance and without trying to get out of it. I realized the feeling of the desire to control what was happening to me. I released this feeling. Everything that was bound up tight and painful inside me simply let go, and a deep, abiding peace replaced it. I drove to work that day in a constant state of forgiveness, a state of peace, knowing I didn't have to solve my problem at all. I knew that all I had to do was look upon the world with a mind at peace, a mind that was not judging my circumstances as good or bad. My mind rested in total forgiveness. In this state of non-judgment, I could just let all things be. I now knew I wasn't being punished. I was only being asked to practice true forgiveness, a state of inner stillness and non-judgment about my situation. My only purpose in being in this situation was to forgive, to bring my peace wherever I found myself, even unto the depths of what I perceived as hell. Little did I know how powerful and transformative true forgiveness was. I arrived at work that same day of my revelation on a horribly busy Monday morning. However, I felt no fear upon walking through the door. Then a most remarkable thing happened. I quickly found myself inside some sort of bubble of peace. I saw the chaos of the world around me, but it was as though I was looking at it from a serene vantage point from somewhere else, a place that was untouchable. I went about my work with all its problems and crises as I normally would, but there was a powerful sense of quiet surrounding my mind. I seemed to have entered a deep stillness. Then an even more remarkable thing happened. People around me also seemed to notice the shift. My coworkers began to comment on the peaceful atmosphere of the pharmacy. Though they too were amidst the chaos, they were also experiencing the same peace that I was. Somehow my bubble extended to my surroundings in a very real way. Several customers even commented on the unusually serene atmosphere of the pharmacy. This quiet mental state continued on for 3 more days. On the 3rd day, I received a phone call from one of the companies I had applied with a month earlier, offering me a job. I am still working for that pharmacy today, and it has been by far the best job I've ever had. I am truly happy in my new environment. I want to point out that I made a shift into inner peace before my outer situation could change. I first shifted into the stillness of thought, that place where all ego-based thinking had ceased. Then my outer situation shifted to match my new higher vibration of love, light, and acceptance. This was not a forced acceptance, but a true shift in belief. I fully understood that I did not understand anything happening to me, but I knew that my thoughts had brought me there. So I chose peace instead of fear. I forgave it all. I gave up all fear thoughts, and the manifestations of fear disappeared. I had used the teachings of the Course for the attainment and the keeping of peace, and I had used the world for the healing of God's Son, of which I am a part. Yet we are all part of God's one Son, and what healing I do to myself brings healing to the whole. A Course in Miracles states, "When I am healed, I am not healed alone, and I would share my healing with the world, that sickness may be banished from the mind of God's one Son, who is my only self." Workbook, Lesson 137. Story 2. Healing a Relationship. In 1997, I graduated from pharmacy school and moved back to my home state of Minnesota with my then boyfriend of 4 years, whom I had met in college. Things between us seemed all right on the surface, but underneath I had growing feelings of resentment towards him. I paid for nearly all the expenses. I did all the cleaning, cooking, and laundry. I also helped write all his college papers and supported him by paying for some of his tuition. I kept telling myself that this is what you did for someone you loved. Yet, I often felt taken for granted and saw no change in this situation as time progressed. My feelings of resentment grew, and this caused fights between us to erupt with greater frequency as I demanded he contribute more to our relationship. I wanted to heal this situation. I wanted peace with this person whom I thought I loved. I even felt that I would someday marry him, that this person was my destiny. I had no intention of breaking up with him. I just wanted the relationship to be at peace. And for that to happen, it seemed to be that he changed his behavior. Then one day, I had an unusual thought, one I'd never had before. It seemed to come out of the blue as I sat at the kitchen table, daydreaming by myself, just before leaving for work. My thought was this: my boyfriend was entitled to be whatever way he wanted. He was not beholden to me or anyone else. He was free to be himself in whatever way that was. I was the one who had the problem with him, and I was trying to change the person he was happy to be. Who was I to change him? Who was I to ask him to contribute to the relationship in ways I thought he should, ways that made my ego happy, but not him? I then realized another thing. I was in this relationship by myself. I alone had an ideal of what the relationship should be. No one else shared this vision with me, and especially not my boyfriend. To my surprise, a deep peace then fell over my heart as I realized this. All strain and friction fell away from me as I admitted that perhaps I loved an ideal I had for him, but this was not who he wanted to be. I suddenly felt myself let go of all control of the relationship. I realized I wasn't accepting him as he was. Then everything in my outer world shifted with this new inner shift into peaceful acceptance. I didn't know how to resolve the situation, but I knew I was no longer going to contribute to the problem by trying to control it. Whatever happened next, I would fully accept. What happened next took me by complete surprise. Every shred of my feelings for him that I thought were love simply and quietly fell away. It literally happened in an instant, like turning off a water faucet. I now felt I only wished my boyfriend peace and happiness with whatever he wanted to be, but this was no longer at the expense of my own peace. This, in truth, was an act of true love at last. I'd set him free of my ego ideals. However, what I didn't realize was that now my boyfriend's energy was no longer a match to the vibration of my new state of inner peace. From that moment forward, our relationship quickly ended with little to no conflict within the span of about 2 weeks. I couldn't believe how easy the transition was and how readily and happily I accepted this change. Though the resolution of the relationship was the ending of it, my future was now open for a new path, brought forward by this newfound state of inner peace. And what manifested within this new space was miraculous. 2 weeks after the breakup, a longtime friend of mine called me out of the blue, asking if I'd like to go out with her for a few drinks and maybe a little dancing at a local club. I told her what had happened in the last 2 weeks with my boyfriend, and she quickly said she'd call me right back. Within 15 minutes, she'd arranged a blind date for me with the best friend of her fiancé. She asked me if I'd like to come out with them and meet him that night as a double date. At the time, the last thing I wanted was a relationship, but I decided to let this all unfold because, quite frankly, what could it hurt? Long story short, the man I met that night ended up truly being the love of my life. He amazes me every day, still to this day, some 22 years of marriage later. We have had nothing but the most peaceful, loving relationship so far, and it only keeps getting better. Again, I want to point out that my inner state of mind shifted into peace before my outer situation could change. I first shifted into the stillness of thought, that place where all ego-based thinking had ceased. Then my outer situation shifted to match my new higher vibration of love, light, and acceptance. This was not a forced acceptance of my ex-boyfriend, but a true shift in belief that I cannot control how others feel, nor should I try to. So I chose peace instead of fear. I forgave it all. I gave up all fear thoughts, all thoughts that wished for things to be different, and the manifestations of fear disappeared. Does this mean that in order for our relationship to become peaceful, it has to end? No, of course not, and most often will not. However, that just happened to be the best path for this relationship. I should also point out that the teachings of the Course did not consciously come into play here, for I had not yet discovered it. I'd unknowingly applied the principle of inner stillness of thought, or forgiveness, which is the stillness of all ego control thoughts, and so I'd unknowingly reached for the attainment and the keeping of my peace, and I had used the world for the healing of God's Son, of which I am a part. Story 3. Healing My Body. In the spring of 2021, I was beginning to experience some pain in my right elbow. It was progressively getting worse over the course of a few weeks, and I knew it was related to my repetitive motions at work. I'm left-handed, but I use my right hand for opening medication containers and stapling prescription bags shut. I perform this motion hundreds of times in a day, and it was beginning to cause me a lot of discomfort. This pain was new to me, and I just assumed that after many years of work, my elbow was wearing out. By that winter, the pain was chronic, but tolerable, until I picked up a pitchfork at home to move some hay for my horses. This extra heavy burden was apparently all my elbow could take. Pain shot down through my arm, and I dropped the pitchfork and hit the ground, writhing in agony. I found that I couldn't even make a fist. The pain was so intense. Over the next few weeks, I tried everything to ease my discomfort. I wore a special brace designed for what I was diagnosed as having, tennis elbow, which is an inflammation of a tendon in the outside of the elbow joint caused by repetitive motion. Treatment is rest, anti-inflammatory pain medication, and physical therapy. I applied all of these measures to my problem with little to no success. The pain was chronic and relentless. During this time, I also tried to apply the principles of A Course in Miracles to my physical healing. I tried what I thought was forgiveness, telling myself repeatedly I was not a body, this pain isn't real, I am a son of God, not this body, and so on and so forth, all without any results. Then, after about 3 months of painful suffering, I was on a walk with my dog Freya. I was thinking about my arm pain and how long I'd been suffering. I wondered how long it would be before it was healed. Would it ever heal? Then it occurred to me, I might be stuck like this for the rest of my life. What if that was the case? I realized I needed to find a way to accept this situation because I couldn't live with the struggle against my pain for the rest of my life. I wanted peace, and this pain was intruding on all my waking thoughts. So I decided to have a conversation with my body, my arm in particular. In an effort to make peace with my body, I said to myself, "Well, arm, it's no wonder you're in the shape you're in. I've used you without thinking for repetitive work for years. What did I expect? That my body would last forever? Dear body, I don't hold you responsible for my pain. My pain is my own. I take full responsibility for it and my experience of it. It is mine to carry, and I now carry it proudly and without complaint. I fully accept whatever my future holds regarding my body, for if I am perceiving pain, then it is but a gift unto myself, for what I see is my responsibility. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but I fully accept it as mine. I absolve my body of all guilt." With this shift in perspective, I instantly felt an inner emotional shift into peaceful acceptance. My mind rested in peace, knowing I'd done all I could and let go of all outcomes. All I had done was ceased to wish things were different. At that time, nothing had apparently changed outwardly with my elbow, but I most certainly felt an inner shift. I felt the peace of having no expectations for what the outcome would be. The next morning, I awoke to a healing miracle. As I'd done for the past few months upon awaking, I'd first bend my elbow very carefully because my pain was usually a shock and I liked to ease into it in the morning. This morning, however, when I bent my elbow, there was no pain. I sat up and moved my arm in all sorts of ways. No pain. It was completely healed. I'm not talking about just feeling a lot better, but completely pain-free. It was as if my elbow had never hurt at all. There was no improvement period. The healing was complete, instant, and total. I thought back to my inner conversation I'd had the afternoon before with my body. I realized I'd applied the same principle of forgiveness as with other moments of instant healing in my life. I'd let go of ego thoughts, those thoughts that wanted to control the situation, those thoughts about the world that wished things were somehow different. It reminded me of a passage from A Course in Miracles, which states, "Dreams are perceptual temper tantrums in which you literally scream, 'I want it thus!' And thus it seems to be. And yet the dream cannot escape its origin. Anger and fear pervade it, and in an instant the illusion of satisfaction is invaded by the illusion of terror, for the dream of your ability to control reality by substituting a world that you prefer is terrifying." Text, Chapter 18, Section 2. And so, I'd shifted my dream, in which I was experiencing pain, to one of peace. I'd shifted my thoughts from fear to love. I did this through simply letting go and taking responsibility for my ego thoughts. And when I realized I was having them, I stopped thinking them, and the dream of fear disappeared with them. Now keep in mind, there are no magic words you can say to bring about this inner shift. The power is not in your words, but in your beliefs. I finally believed I was the only one responsible for my pain, and I believed I could then let it go and move into acceptance of what is. The indicator I'd made this shift was my profound sense of peace and relinquishment of control of the situation. The proof of my inner shift was in my new feelings. A Course in Miracles states, "This is the only thing that you need do for vision, happiness, release from pain, and the complete escape from sin, all to be given you. Say only this, but mean it with no reservations, for here the power of salvation lies. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for, and receive as I have asked. Deceive yourself no longer that you are helpless in the face of what is done to you. Acknowledge but that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear." Text, Chapter 21, Section 2. Story 4. Healing the body of someone else. During the summer of 2021, my mother was diagnosed with a rare form of liver bile duct cancer. We were told by doctors that it was incurable and surgery was not an option. At best, we could administer chemotherapy and it would buy my mom maybe 1 to 2 years before the cancer would develop resistance to the medication and proceed unchecked. At worst, if we did nothing, she would most likely die within the next 6 months. This was devastating news. My mom was just coming upon her 70th birthday, and I felt this was still too young to die. I felt like I was being cheated out of years with her. Over the next few weeks, my thoughts and emotions ranged through all the different stages of grief and sadness as I processed the reality of what was now happening. It felt like one day my life was fine, and the next it shifted into a nightmare. I still had to function in my daily activities of work and raising a family, but it felt like there was an ongoing bad movie playing in the background. However, once all my ego thoughts had run their course, I found I could once again focus on the Course. So after a couple of weeks, I found myself reaching for the truth, trying to understand exactly how the Course teachings could be applied to this situation. To begin, I thought about it with careful logic. All people die. Even Jesus died. And if death was good enough for him, then it was good enough for me. It was also good enough for my mother and everyone else. Nobody gets to keep their parents or anyone else's body in this world with them forever. These bodies are not designed to be eternal. Okay, I could accept that rule. Next, I decided it was all right for Mom to physically die whenever she was supposed to, and that it was not up to me to determine when that should be. I trusted the process of our lives here, and that all timing of our earthly transition is perfect. Despite how painfully unfair it may seem, only the ego feels unfairly treated. The Holy Spirit trusts all things to God, knowing all events and experiences are here for our greatest good. I then thought deeply on the fact that we are not these bodies, that I would have my mom for all eternity in the realm beyond the physical. I would certainly mourn the loss of her physical presence here in time, but her presence would never cease to exist. I knew that I could reach out to her any time and she would hear me. I also knew that she could also reach out to me here in the physical, that I could feel her presence when my mind was still and resting in a peaceful, loving state. And so, I was able to let go of my desire to control the situation, to wish things were somehow different, thus forgiving it. My heart had moved into a state of willingness to allow all events and bodily illnesses to be whatever they appeared to be. My heart moved into peace. My mother may have appeared to be physically sick, but I knew she was perfect in spirit, as God created her to be. Then, as with all the other situations in the past, with this shift into true inner peace, came a shift in outer circumstances. We were informed that there was a new study drug for my mom's type of cancer, and that she would be eligible to participate. The study drug was not a new type of chemotherapy, but something that would prevent the cancer from developing resistance to her current chemotherapy treatment. This would potentially prolong her life, or at least remove the current known expiration date of her body. It would give her more time. How much time was anybody's guess, and that was good enough for me. I discovered it's no pleasure in knowing when you're going to die. There's comfort in not knowing. Also, any one of my loved ones could die at any moment from choking on food, a disastrous car accident, or falling down the stairs. We can't prevent these things from happening, but at least we can let go of our fear of them. We can let go of our fear of death. So, is this a true healing miracle, given my mother still has cancer? To me, yes. The necessary inner healing took place within me, which caused my mind to shift into a state of peace, and that I have now accepted my mother's illness. I have ceased feeling torn apart by her diagnosis, wishing things were different. And now, my outer circumstances have shifted to the most peaceful outcome possible, even though she still has cancer. The highest possible healing has come, in a form my mother can accept, as well as myself. This change could not come if I had not healed my own perception of my mother, perceiving her as perfect love and light, eternally at one with me and God. This thought alone eased all my fear of losing her, knowing that such loss was impossible outside the ego's thinking. this created space for a new, unexpected path, a new treatment regimen that may increase her physical life by years. And let us remember that even Lazarus, whom Jesus raised from the dead himself, still eventually died. His physical death was not cured for all time, to my knowledge. He's still not walking this world. So even Christ would not cause a body to live forever. We all must leave this place at some point. And so, I am content with whatever time my loved ones and I are given, trusting that when we do leave, it is the perfect time, whether our ego agrees or not. And so again, inner peace, which is the purpose of the Course, is attained through forgiveness. In order to forgive, we must become open-minded, ready to make a shift into a new awareness. We cannot be stuck in our old beliefs. We must be ready to give them up entirely. A Course in Miracles states, how do the open-minded forgive? They have let go all things that would prevent forgiveness. They have, in truth, abandoned the world and let it be restored to them in newness and in joy, so glorious they could never have conceived of such a change. A Course in Miracles Manual, Section 10. Now is the goal achieved. Forgiveness is the final goal of the curriculum. It paves the way for what goes far beyond all learning. Forgiveness is its single aim, at which all learning ultimately converges. It is indeed enough. A Course in Miracles Manual, Section 10. And now it is my hope that you see there is no order of difficulty in miracles, because all things are healed in the exact same way. Through seeing through the eyes of forgiveness, which is the absence of ego thoughts, which is the absence of thoughts about controlling people or circumstances or wishing things were different. It is to have let the world and all its insanity go in peace. Forgiveness is to be at peace with the past, present, and future, to still live in this world and take action within it as you feel guided to, but then don't worry about it. Then is your mind free to rest in thoughts of truth, thoughts that do not strive to control your circumstances through wishing things were different. Then has your mind entered the stillness of God's mind. Now your thoughts can accept that all people and circumstances should be allowed to be as they are. And when you make this simple allowance, this simple forgiveness, you allow God to step in and lead the way. And His way is peace, and you will love where He takes you. For the world becomes different when you become different. In each situation, I ceased to judge. I ceased to judge my circumstances and the people involved as good or bad. To cease to judge is forgiveness. And when you reach this state of true forgiveness, it is a miracle. And when you reach a state of miracle-mindedness, you allow miracles to heal all things. Each of the four circumstances above would have gone quite differently had I not forgiven. Instead, each scenario turned out in a way I never would have imagined. In the case of my ex-boyfriend, my ego judgment would have told me to stay in the relationship, hoping this man would one day become what I wanted. It would have been a long and unhappy relationship situation. In the case of my job, I had no choice but to leave my old employer because they closed their doors. I would never have left them to begin with if that had not happened. However, I'm now working at a place that I'm even happier at, in positive working conditions I never knew existed in retail pharmacy. Yes, there was discomfort in the interim, temporarily working in an intolerable environment, but I now see this step was necessary in order to transition to a better place. In the case of my injured arm, my ego judgment would have told me that I probably needed stronger pain medication, perhaps even narcotics or surgery in time. This would have led to a long path of pain and suffering in a variety of ways. My ego judgment wouldn't have conceived of any other path to healing. In the case of my mom's cancer, My ego judgment told me that total elimination of the cancer was the only cure, that there was no hope unless surgery or chemotherapy could eradicate it. My ego judgment could not have conceived that there might be another medication that could help prolong my mom's life for as long as possible, and neither did my ego take into consideration that she herself has lessons to learn from this affliction, lessons my ego knows nothing about. Who am I to interfere with her life lessons? They are mine as well. Let them come. The important thing to remember is to lift your mind off the bottom rung of thinking. You will know your mind is down on the bottom when you're having thoughts of resistance, thoughts that wish things were somehow different. Such thoughts root you in the past or tie you to worry about future events that are yet unknown. Such thoughts do not allow you to be present. And when your mind is preoccupied with wishing things were different, you are a slave to the misery of the ego. For such thoughts mire you in uncreative energy, energy that refuses to move forward. You remain stuck in an unhappy thought pattern. You will literally feel stuck, and such energy does not allow you to let go and allow the highest outcome to manifest, an outcome your ego knows nothing about. When you find yourself having bottom-rung thoughts, simply remember to forgive. Forgiveness is the stillness of all thoughts about wanting to control how things turn out in the future or wish the past were different. Forgiveness is love, which allows all things to be as they are, knowing it has no business controlling anything or anyone. A Course in Miracles says, to forgive is to overlook. Chapter 9, text section 4. Thus, we must overlook all thoughts that lead us into the temptation to dwell on how we want to control our lives through controlling our situations and relationships. When you have forgiven, when you have ceased all such thoughts, you will feel tremendous relief. You will feel healing come, and it will change your life, first inside, then out. And so, I hope you have come to understand the miracle forgiveness brings. The first part of the miracle is the healing of the mind, our process of letting go of ego judgments, those thoughts that wish to control everything. Then our mind is free to move into the stillness of God's thoughts, thoughts that trust in the truth alone, thoughts that know we are eternal, we are one, we are as God created us, we are still and forever at peace, basking in the joy of His love. Then, all that happens next within the healing miracle will come from God. It will not be of you alone, for you will have joined with His will for you to rest in His peace. And this is the whole goal of A Course in Miracles. Written, narrated, and produced by Beth Geer. For more from me, go to www.bethgeer.com. There you will also find the transcript to this video under the Miracle Minded Messages tab. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. You will be blessed by the blessing you extend. Thank you, and peace be with you.